Welcome, Colton, to the Wholesome Crypto podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course.
To chat about Prime and have a good conversation.
Yeah, we all know you as the founder of Prime Protocol, and it's something we definitely need in a DeFi world. And I'm sure your audience is going to love learning more about what's coming for Prime. But I want to know more about Colton and what he was doing before ever even hearing about crypto. Where were you?
Well, before hearing about crypto, I was in high school. That's sort of when I got my start. I ended up first hearing about crypto, and I started investing in 2016. At that point, I was just throwing around very small amounts of money, and I ended up building a trading bot to go between different centralized exchanges. And that's really what got me interested and involved in the space originally. And this was, before DeFi had really taken off or was a thing. And smart contracts were something that we were talking about. And Ethereum existed, but not much had been built on it yet. So I had always been interested in, math and coding and that kind of thing. So it fit very nicely into my interests. And in college, I ended up studying econ and stats and data science, took a lot more comp sci. And so I think crypto is sort of the intersection of all of those things, and a really cool experiment that I wanted to get into full time later on down the road.
Right on. And did someone, or did you read it online? Like how did you first actually hear about it? Crypto or Bitcoin or Ethereum?
I forget how I first heard about it. I either read about it online or heard about it from my dad and then went and researched it online. And then we got into it together.
Nice.
And, so that's probably how I got into it. Despite, being older, and not somebody who was still a teenager at the time, he's very technology forward, used to be in venture capital and always looking for cool stuff like that. I know he had heard about it when Bitcoin was created. I think his biggest regret is that he didn't buy more.
I feel like that's everyone's always biggest regret. I wish I bought more a year ago or a year or two ago. It's
well, if you could buy in 2013, that was a good time to buy.
Yeah. Even 2015 was a good time to buy relative to now. But that's the whole purpose of this, right? Is we're investing for something that's going to grow in the future, 10 years down the line. Now we're still building, we're early. I feel like we always say we're still early, but it feels true.
Yeah, I think it's definitely true, especially now in the bear market. It feels earlier than it was a year or two ago, just because the amount of adoption we have right now and is a lot lower than the number of people who were using it a year or two ago. That doesn't mean they won't come back, but I think when they do come back, the industry will be much more mature because it's the people who have survived and the projects that have survived have sort of weathered the storm and figured out how to make their products work with or without crazy economic conditions.
Exactly. And then was the aspect of just financial aspect, making money, that was your first interest? I think as many of us, you see crypto prices going up and down. The volatility of it is exciting.
Yeah, I think that was definitely part of it. I think the other thing that really interested me is just the idea of being able to transact in a decentralized way without having to go through centralized authority. And so I think anybody who at least has somewhat of a libertarian streak is pretty attracted to that idea. Obviously, Bitcoin and Ethereum are not anonymous. I played around a bit with Monero and mined some as well. So I was into that kind of stuff as well.
Nice. Was your dad a big influence of pretty much explaining and showing to you how broken the current monetary system is?
Yeah, I would say so. A lot of it was also, we have very similar priors. So doing research, we come to similar conclusions on stuff.
Nice.
But yeah, definitely when I was younger, he was a formative influence on me.
Nice. And yeah, like you said, technology was something you've always just loved and you just are interested in it. So you kind of gravitate towards that. Same for me. It's like whenever some new tech comes out, I'm just going to research as much as I can about it and try to build little apps here and there. But what was the idea of Prime? Was that the first idea you kind of had in crypto other than arbitrage trading bots? Like, was there something in between that kind of led you into Prime?
I've had plenty of ideas. Prime was the one that I decided to build that I think could have some real product market fit and traction and large usage. I had also thought about, I sort of thought about Squeeth before that came out. I don't know if you remember that, but basically
I don't think so.
When I was a vol trader, I sort of recognized that a lot of these LP pools that people had, when you invest in a traditional like DEX LP position, you're basically like selling volatility, because if the price goes up too much, you lose money relative to if you just held the two tokens, not in an LP pool. And if the price goes down too much, you also lose money. And then there's this interesting element of if there's a ton of volume but the price stays the same, then you end up making money. And ultimately, it's like actually not a great bet for LPs. And over time, like they tend to lose money, or at least historically they have, because prices have been relatively volatile. Mm-hmm. And so I was really interested in creating some sort of protocol that would basically give you inverse derivative exposure to price movement to help you match up the like gamma risk that you and higher order risks that you were taking by investing in an LP pool. Because it was already possible to basically hedge out the delta risk, and there were some yield farms that did that. So I thought that was a pretty interesting idea. And I did a lot of like delta neutral yield farming for a little bit. It did all right. I don't think it was anything exceptional. But that was an idea I had. Also had different ideas for on-chain options. Obviously, there are other people working on that too. And so I felt like that space was a little bit more competitive. And despite having options knowledge, I didn't know if there was going to be enough interest, because the people who trade those in large amounts of size tend to be institutions. And in traditional markets, the reason why institutions are trading options is largely to hedge different kinds of exposure. Like interest rate options, you have corporates trying to hedge their corporate debt exposure. You have mortgage issuers or servicers trying to hedge like maybe some of the convexity risk that they have with those positions. But there's not really other than LP positions, not as much of a natural demand source for that in crypto, other than people trying to gamble. And I think that even more so than what I'm doing now is very cyclical. So I didn't end up pursuing that either.
Gotcha. So then from idea to actually, I think now you're in a public test net with Prime Protocol, right? Like anyone can join and just test it out for fun.
Yeah.
So from idea till now, what was the time gap?
Well, I first had the idea probably around October of 2021. That was back when I still had a TradFi job, and started working on this a little over a year ago. So I left at the end of December, started working on this, like putting together some funding and mapping things out in January. Closed the round like in February. Like money came in around ETH Denver last year.
Nice.
And was off to the races. So the initial MVP, like what I initially wanted to do was just a CDP protocol where there'd be a stable coin. You could deposit collateral anywhere, take out the stable coin, borrow anywhere. And it was, over collateralized. So nothing like Terra or something that would be like risky, like really wanted to guarantee that it actually held its value.
Yep.
And then you'd be able to really seamlessly bridge it between different chains and use it interoperably. And that's still in the protocol. But we ended up adding more because given the bear market conditions, very hard to scale a new stablecoin, especially if you are a newer protocol, you have to offer higher yields on that. And I figured, we already built this cross-margining system. Why not add money markets and additional functionality to it as well? So that's what we did. And so the original protocol, like we launched on testnet, I want to say like September, October of last year. We like did a couple complete audits of the existing protocol, and then we added all these extra features. So that includes the money markets, universal access, so being able to submit either a borrow or a withdraw transaction from any chain, but it could pop out on any other chain that you choose. Wow. So you can pay gas wherever you like, and some other cool like bells and whistles that I think will make the protocol much more unique, which is really important in market conditions like this. And Absolutely. So that version of the protocol came out about a month ago, and it's been on testnet ever since.
Nice. What a feeling, right? Like entrepreneurship is such a ride in itself. And like, like how are you feeling when you said, all right, I'm going to quit my traditional finance job and then move full-time crypto, and who knows what's going to happen? What was going on through your head at that time?
I mean, I definitely always wanted to do my own thing. It definitely happened a little bit sooner than I think I had originally planned out. But I'm really glad that I'm full-time in crypto now. And I just enjoy everything about it so much more. I think, building something is way different than trading stuff, especially when the stuff that you're trading is like, it's interesting from a technical perspective, and like macro econ is interesting. But at the end of the day, like I definitely wasn't particularly happy doing what I was doing. Like you sort of get into a job like that because it pays you a ton of money. Mm-hmm. And I think what I'm doing now is definitely way higher risk. It's also much higher reward, and but it's also more fulfilling. So regardless of monetary outcome, I definitely really enjoy what I'm doing now. And I think I find a lot of fulfillment as well. And in like the team that we've built, which I think is really strong. Nice. And like having, something that I've put out into the world that hopefully will, make crypto better.
How big is your team now?
Including me, we're 8 people.
Nice. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing what you can build with just 8 people, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's actually pretty typical for a lot of DeFi teams, especially like seed stage and early on. I think because just the nature of building in DeFi, if you have too many people on the code base, then you just like step on each other's toes, and like the marginal productivity per engineer goes down pretty quickly after you have a few. And we have a really good community and social team as well. And so I think this is a pretty good size. Maybe in the future we might bring on a few more. But yeah, I think you can run pretty lean as a DeFi team and do well.
Now, for anyone listening who's interested in working in the crypto space, kind of what do you look for, and how do you decide like who to onboard on your team?
Yeah. I think the most important thing that I always say is you have to be genuinely passionate about crypto, and like you need to want to be here because you love crypto. And if you want to work at Prime, you have to love DeFi. If you don't, and you're just looking for, if you're like a fair weather crypto enthusiast who's looking to just make some quick money, probably not the best fit. And the reason I say that is those people, a lot of them like ended up leaving when prices went down, and I'm sure they'll be back when prices come back up. But you're not actually, ironically, you end up making less money that way because you have to be in it through the bear market to, build real products and sort of accumulate, and, you'll be rewarded on the other side. But a lot of people are, shorter term thinkers or chasing the shiny thing. So I think that's something that we really try to emphasize on our team. Which I think also really helps both the retention and the culture of the team, is everybody's really passionate about what they're building. Obviously, there are other non-negotiables, like you have to be really smart, you have to be good at your job, and you have to be a fast learner because in the space you're always learning. It's not like traditional tech where if you want to build a SaaS company, there's a pretty like well-defined tech stack that everybody uses for like a web app or like a phone app or whatever you're building. And it's really just, okay, plug and play. Like when you're building in crypto, especially something like what we're doing, which has never been done before, like half of the thing is a research project and the other half is building it. And then, there's a lot of testing as well. And so you have to find people who have a passion for innovation as well.
Nice. And it's very true. Especially when you're talking about building during a bear market, like a lot of times when people come in during a bull market, they're like, oh, where'd all these companies come from that are making so much money? Well, they were building during the
bull market. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's a key feature that I guess most people kind of forget. And I've been in crypto since 2013. Right. And I've seen this roller coaster ride many times. And emotionally, I'm like, oh man, is this the last time crypto is going to be up? Like, is it over? Like, did I just lose everything again? But no, it's like just a ride that you have to go through. And as you're building, as you're growing with this quiet bear market, it's kind of like nice because you can put your head down and just build and not be so focused on the price.
Right.
And then when the bull market comes around, that's when you get to reap some rewards.
Yep.
But so as you're building your team, you have development going on, you're growing. Is this almost like, as an entrepreneur, did you have a roadmap plan? Like, all right, by 2023, March, I'm going to be at 50,000 followers on Twitter. I'm going to have my public testnet out. Or were you kind of just like, I'm going to go as hard as I can, as fast as I can and see what happens?
Yeah. I mean, look, we definitely plan to have things out sooner, but that's how software always goes.
Yeah.
And because we sort of made I don't know if it's a pivot or just a large addition to the protocol, it took a few extra months to get things out the door relative to what we were initially planning. I'd say the social growth has been fantastic. I definitely, it always comes like very quickly all at once. And then after that, it's like a steady grind. And so I've been very satisfied with how that's gone. I think it's really hard to plan that kind of thing. You just work as hard as you can and just keep grinding at it. So I think right now our attitude is let's just make sure that we get things done as fast as possible, but with the caveat that we need to get it done right. And I think a lot of the teams that were shipping in the bull market ship things too fast without properly testing them. And especially for something like what we're doing, it's, cross-chain is a lot of people associate with higher risk. And to some extent, that's correct. What we've built is a lot more complicated than existing single chain lending protocols. So we definitely needed to be very careful and deliberate about how we built it. And there was a lot of other infrastructure that goes on behind the scenes that when people look at the contracts, they don't see that we had to build out in order to make this possible, both from like a testing perspective, also from a deployment perspective and maintenance perspective. We have way more lines of code on the infrastructure side than we actually do on the contract side, which I think at this point is really accelerating our development and gives us a big competitive edge because we can, iterate on testnet faster and test things more effectively. But it took a while to build all of that out as well, which was something that I think I didn't fully appreciate when I got into this. But now I'm like, okay, yeah, that was definitely necessary to do.
Nice. And this is more than just EVM compatible chains, right? This is including Bitcoin?
So the version 1 won't include Bitcoin. Bitcoin's tough because it's not Turing complete. I did actually meet somebody recently who's building an EVM on Bitcoin. I'm interested to see how that turns out. I think in the future, we would like to see if we can maybe work with Thorchain or something to have native Bitcoin as collateral. I think most of the market is on EVM right now. Mm-hmm. So that's where we decided to go first. It'll be all major EVM chains. And for version 2, we have a lot planned, and that could include a number of non-EVM chains as well, both like in the Cosmos ecosystem and beyond. So there's still a lot to be built for non-EVM, and ultimately that's it takes a lot of judgment, I think, to decide which non-EVM chains you want to build for, because what's hot today might not be hot in a year or two.
Yep.
Which is when the product's live and growing and building traction. But there's a big upfront investment for every non-EVM chain you build for, because most of them are different, and they require different tech stack. We have to build new infrastructure for it, and new programming language. So that means a different set of contracts. So yeah, we do have plans to go non-EVM. That's going to take a little bit longer, and we're going to be very deliberate about the choices that we make there, because we have to make sure the investment has a good ROI.
Exactly. Like you said, most of it is like research, and then other part of it is just developing and building it out.
Yep.
Now that you're in this crypto space for, over for 7 years or so, what's a crypto pet peeve you have?
That's a good question. I personally think that one of the main initial utilities of crypto is like decentralized finance and applications related to that. I think a lot of people love chasing like new shiny objects. Yeah. I think that NFTs were definitely overvalued during the last like hype cycle, and a lot of the people who were shilling projects that were going to have real world utility in the future, where there was just no path to doing that. I think that kind of rubs me the wrong way, because you're really just trying to get people hyped up for something that's not going to come. I think there are some notable exceptions of people who did deliver real world utility to their NFTs, but that was like in the roadmap up front. So the people who were basically saying like, oh yeah, this collection of like animals is going to give you access to some exclusive community in the future. Like, okay, that's great. And I feel like a lot of the like innovation in that space, I think has like the reputation of NFTs and like their applications have sort of been damaged by a lot of these sort of profit driven, like hype seeking projects that don't really have any real utility. Like I think there's definitely a place for NFTs to exist in the crypto ecosystem tied to more like real world assets. I know people have mixed opinions on that in crypto right now, but I think ultimately that's like the real value of them, is actually having some like real world utility or tied to some sort of real world cash flows. Like that could actually give them value. And there are things in the real world that aren't fungible, like the same way ERC20s are. So I think that's one of my pet peeves is a lot of the NFT culture. I remember my first time at ETH Denver, which was last year. There were a number of people I met who were just like, oh yeah, I own this, or I bought into this NFT collection really early, so now I'm rich and I just do whatever I want. Yeah. But they weren't really contributing that much to the ecosystem. I don't know. I find that a little annoying.
I totally agree, because I met lots of people who are just like, yeah, I got the Bored Ape and now it pays for itself and I can do this and that. I'm like, well, how are you helping out everyone else? Like you're kind of just raking it in like any other like rug pull project. But it's also like, it's tough to decide, because on the other hand, it brings a lot of mainstream attention. Like, Bored Ape selling for millions of dollars. Everyone's like, oh, wow, look at that. You can make so much money off crypto. And then all of a sudden Coinbase has an influx of a couple million new users. And that's great for crypto. We need more user adoption. But the messaging behind it is so incorrect. It's like, that's not the actual goal.
Yeah, I guess it's a mixed bag there, because I do agree that it's very important to get the word out and have solid marketing operations within crypto. And ultimately that's what most of these NFT projects are, is their marketing operations. Yep. I just think a lot of them, you could accomplish the same thing with the centralized database and people wouldn't really care, I don't think, who are participating in these communities. And like the promise of crypto is decentralization, and how can we use that to better society?
Exactly. And like, same for me, because decentralization is key. It's the whole point of crypto, is owning your own assets, owning your own money. And if you do have money, you can put in a liquidity pool if you want to help other people diversify their assets. Like it's really showing, it's kind of like like it's mixed bag, like you said. Like you can put crypto to kind of do whatever you want. And if you really want to make an NFT project, you can, even though it's not like the number one thing that you're not really solving that many problems. But I guess if you want to just prove something, you can use that as a, use case. Now that you're building this out, you're working on Prime, have there been any surprises in building a business that's in crypto, like registering it as a business, and then also just, legally trying to say, no, I'm doing something that's actually useful, but it's kind of hard to like maneuver that around?
I mean, yes and no. I think a lot of it, I sort of knew what I was getting into. I do think, like, from a legal perspective, probably the biggest challenge that new crypto businesses are facing, especially in the US, but I think this is globally an issue too, is just accessibility to traditional financial services. If I was starting today, a lot of like the bank accounts that I had, gotten set up for like a legally incorporated development company in the US, it would have been very hard to do because, even though that development company is not, deriving any profits from the protocol, it's like never going to, like, that US corporation will never sell a token. Like, people just hear crypto and, or like any sort of blockchain development, and they want to run the other way. And a lot of it's due to, the incredibly hostile regulators and like administration that we have right now in the US. So I think that's like, it's been that side of things probably a little worse than I was expecting, but because of when I got started, fortunately, like, a lot of that isn't impacting me personally, because we have all of that stuff set up already. I think the thing that I was most surprised by was the amount of like the scale of this collapse and sort of amount of just blatant disregard for both risk and sort of the whole FTX thing. I think was a little bit of a surprise that people did so little diligence and there was so much like greed and corruption going on there. Like that was a lot. Obviously, I think that reinforces the need for DeFi and what we're doing. Yeah. So long-term, like, bullish on what we're building, because as an industry, we're trying to prevent that from happening again. But in the short term, obviously, like, it's a net negative for the reputation of crypto in general. I think that was one of the larger surprises since I've been building in the space.
Yeah, and that's how you bring up FTX. It's like people will come to me saying, "Oh, how's your crypto doing now that FTX screwed everything up?" I'm like, well, I don't associate centralized entities as crypto. Like, that's the problem with centralized entities, not cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrency is supposed to be decentralized, where people are more open, and if their code's open, or like what's going on with the money is open, like how smart contracts are created, that's all also open. So what's going to happen. Whereas a centralized entity, you have no idea what's going on, and you just trust the person. And this is what happens when you trust someone blindly. Right.
Well, I think another thing is, this is what happens when regulators like force shady actors to go overseas and don't give people any good options in the US. The only company that has really stood the test of time and not had any major scandals like this is Coinbase. And they've tried their hardest to comply with all of the US regulations and are US based and open about it. But the regulators have done everything they can to prevent them from innovating and make them less competitive relative to a lot of these other companies. And so ultimately, like, I kind of put this at the feet of the regulators. Like, they created this situation where you have an offshore unregulated entity in the Bahamas that grows really quickly because they aren't hamstrung by, all of the bad decisions people are making in Washington.
Exactly. And people will take advantage of rules if they can. It's just how humans are, I guess.
Right. I mean, I think this is also an issue of like people complain about concentration in the traditional finance sector too, of like, oh, these big banks have too much power and they have, too much of the industry is relying on them and they're too big to fail. And yeah, like you can make regulations to try and break them up, but you also have a whole set of regulations preventing new entrants to the market. It's incredibly hard to get a banking charter. You need a whole team of lawyers and a lot of capital to deal with all of the current regulations. And a lot of the big banks support this sort of oppressive regime because it helps them keep their dominance because you're preventing new entrants to the market and they can just share it with, a few of their buddies. So yeah, it's a tough situation. And I think hopefully crypto can help solve that. But especially in the States, it's an uphill battle right now.
Yep. And now to learn more about, what you do outside of crypto, like you're dealing with all this in your mind, you're building this business, there's so much regulations and engineering and research you have to do and managing a team. How does Colton take care of his mental health and just kind of like decompress if you have to, or even if you do?
Yeah. I mean, I think I am generally like a pretty happy guy. And it's not too much of an issue. I try and work out pretty frequently. That's my way of decompressing. During the week, like don't have much time outside of, working out and work, and see friends on the weekend. So I think, yeah, that's mainly how I deal with it. I don't have any crazy, like meditate for 30 minutes every day and take a cold shower and do all of that. Try and take the cold shower every once in a while, but I don't have some super strict regime or any secrets.
Do you read a lot of books?
I think making sure that you are like moving enough throughout the week and working out is important, and like getting enough sleep.
Do you read a lot of books?
I do more on Audible, and I'll do it either as I'm like falling asleep or on plane rides, or like walking to and from the gym. I don't have that much time where I just sit down and read a book though.
Yeah. I mean, you're an entrepreneur. That's how it works. So it is hard. I have to like force myself to, like, instead of watching TV, I'm like, all right, let me try reading instead for an hour rather than watching an episode of The Mandalorian or something.
Yeah. I don't really watch TV.
Yeah. That's good. I think that's good. Who knows? Maybe in 10 years we'll decide something different about TV. But yeah, man, like, Colton, you're doing like amazing things with Prime. Like, what's coming up next? What should people get excited for?
Well, I mean, we're on testnet. We have the final product on testnet, and we're doing our final audits right now. So you can probably connect the dots as to what's coming really soon. That mainnet's just around the corner. So that's, I think, what I'm really excited for. And I think it's especially exciting for people who are early in the community to be able to use mainnet early. I think it's going to be a good opportunity for people. And I'm really excited to see how people decide to use the protocol.
Nice. Could you imagine yourself doing anything different if it wasn't for crypto?
If it wasn't for crypto, I mean, if crypto didn't exist, obviously I'd be doing something different. But with crypto in the picture, no, I think I'm doing what I was meant to do at this point in my life. So I'm very happy about where things are going right now.
Right on. But yeah, thank you so much, Colton, for being on the show. Where can people find you? What's your Twitter handle? Where can people find Prime Protocol?
Yeah, so my personal Twitter is Colton F. Conley, all one word. And our Prime Protocol Twitter is Prime_protocol. So you should definitely follow both of those accounts for updates and stay in the loop, turn on notifications. And you should also join our Discord. You've got a great team of mods and a really strong community, and all of us are on Discord to support you and answer your questions as we launch and beyond. So
yeah, I'm part of that Discord now too. So if anyone wants to chat with me too, I'll be on there, and definitely watching how Prime goes because it's an exciting project. And thank you for contributing. Thank you for building DeFi. Thank you for going against the grain and doing everything the Wholesome Crypto way. Yeah,
thank you. Thank you for helping get the word out. It's a team effort.
And I had one more question for you. What is your favorite wholesome crypto moment? Something that happened in the crypto space that made you feel good and like proud to be part of this industry?
I think one of my favorite moments was probably when the wormhole token bridge got hacked, and Jump immediately stepped in and made everybody whole. That was they had no idea that they were going to be able to recover the funds at the time, and they did it pretty quickly without hesitation. And I think that's evidence of these guys are really in it to build the best infrastructure and build trust. It was a lot of money, and definitely not something to scoff at. It was like one of the biggest hacks that's happened. But they have so much conviction in the good that this can do and the future value of it, that they were willing to not only do that, but they would do it again if they had to. And I think everybody knows that. So I think that was really like an altruistic show of faith in crypto, that was not necessarily a for-profit motive. It was this is the right thing to do. And actually being in their position and having to make that call, I think shows a lot of character.
Absolutely. You have to do what's best to keep our reputation in the highest regard. Thank you again, Colton. Appreciate your time and look forward to Prime.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the pod, and hope everybody enjoys what we're building and hops in and tries out mainnet when it's live.
Absolutely. See you, everyone.